Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game, the podcast where I, your host, Connor McCabe, bring on a guest to hear from them about a meaningful or memorable video game from a particular moment in their life. On the show, we talk to our guest as much about what made playing that game special and memorable for them, as we will get into the context of how and when they had this meaningful time with it, often in the first place. A little bit of housekeeping up top is that anything that my guest or I share today, plug-wise, if we have podcasts we want to share, shows we want you to go to, there's going to be a link in the show notes wherever you're listening. So if you're watching this on YouTube or listening in your favorite podcast catcher, whether it's Spotify or Apple or whatever, if you scroll down and you want to find the things that we plug, there's easy links for you to click, including all the social media for the show, our TikTok, the Patreon, where we have bonus podcast episodes for you if you just can't get enough. There's a bunch of great stuff in the plugs, so feel free to scroll down and find that. That's it for the housekeeping. The way I said that, it kind of sounded like I was about to say, and that's it for the podcast. I just love to make observations about how I say things. Anyway, we have a wonderful guest today, so let's please welcome to the microphone. Here we go. Improv legend, Nick Tiffany. Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad to have you on today. This is how in the making is this? I don't know, roughly 7 months or so when I first brought it up.
Yeah. Maybe half a year. Yeah.
Yeah. Just the perfect amount of time for the guest to probably forget the podcast exists, and then here I come in an Instagram DM and we make it happen. So here we are.
Yeah, I've been gestating since that first moment.
And that's exactly what I was expecting. Nick, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. You and I know each other, how I know the majority of the guests on this show, through the Los Angeles improv community. And, you know, I think this is going to be an episode where I break the fourth wall a lot, 'cause this is about to be the second time that I do that already. I was listening to an old bonus episode that I did about 3 years ago that's going to release either later this month or early next month. And one of my guests on that episode, I introduce him and I start to say that, like I know this person, how I know the majority of my guests and it was already like, there's so many habits I have on the show, things that I just have been saying forever, that he was like, you don't know me actually, through the Los Angeles improv community. Like, he cut me off before I could even say it. But there was no reason for me to tell you about that story.
Wait, I actually want to know, how did you know that guest?
So coincidentally, this is the same person I was telling you about before, Mr. 2 hours and 40 minutes himself.
Oh, it was your friend.
Yes,
yeah, totally,
This is my friend, Mike Steele, who, do you know the improviser Jake Sprague, who used to be on Pony and a bunch of other teams?
Mustache, yeah.
Yes.
I call him Old Mustache.
Old Mustache. Well, he would love to hear that. He was one of my earliest guests. I've known Jake for a long time, and he referenced, Mike, if Mike listens to this, he's going to be thrilled that he's being brought up so much. He referenced his, basically, I don't know, high school, middle school best friend on the show, and talked about how he left a voicemail for him. Turns out this would become my friend Mike, who we got connected together via Jake, and he's a huge video game player and has worked in games development. But so I technically knew him, to actually answer your question, through Jake, which technically I think almost counts as through the Los Angeles improv community, because that's how I know Jake. But I think on a technicality, it's probably not true.
Yeah, but that's exactly. You met through, the connection is through the Los Angeles improv community. So he was wrong.
Yeah, so Mike, if you're listening to this 3 years later, shame on you. Yeah. So that's how I knew that guest. Anyway, broke the fourth wall. Nick, I think I can faintly remember the first time I ever saw you do improv. So please correct me if I'm wrong. I could have done research, but I didn't. I'm just going off vibes and memory. Weren't you on a mess hall team in the spring of 2019?
Wow, incredible. Yes, I was. I was on from when was I on mess hall? I was on mess hall from I got on with the Herald auditions that year, the same time.
Yeah.
So it was mid 2019, whatever that was. And then through like our season like was about to finish and then it got ended by the pandemic. Although we did get at that point like mess hall, whatever, Lloyd, etc. like wasn't performing at Franklin. It was doing it in the Inner Sanctum at Sunset.
Yeah.
And we did get our Franklin show, and the other set of mess hall teams didn't get their Franklin show, and that got like, yeah.
Oh, I
Shuddered.
remember when, because that was such a special little thing to have sort of dangled at the end of the season, was a Franklin show. And now these Lloyd teams today, they don't know how good they have it.
No, and I have been telling them that. I've entered my really like conservative improv era.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's just, just a rite of passage as an improviser, is to let the generation, or really anything in life, let the generation before you know how good they have, or after you, how good they have it.
Yeah. And I want them to have it like I had it.
Yeah.
Slightly worse.
Well, yeah, slightly worse. That's really all we need. But that's a long way for me to ramble and say that I remember when that happened, because I knew a few people who did get to do that and then who didn't. But that makes sense. What was your team name that fall?
Totally. It was Possum.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I remember like most of maybe I shouldn't just like list every single person I was on the team with. But like Shakira and I, she's on my team now.
Oh my gosh.
She was on my mess hall team.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And now we've been on like 4 teams together.
Yeah. Just destined to stay together. There's, I'm not sure if you've met Ben Wheatmartian on my team. He's the Tony Hawk looking guy.
Oh, yeah, of course. Wow. He does look like Tony Hawk. Yeah.
Yes. Truly the first thing I ever thought about him when I saw him on Mess Hall back in the day. But Ben and I are kind of like that, where we got placed on our first Herald team together in 2019, and now we're still, it's pandemic in there, but we're still together. So he's kind of like my improv husband, or like Herald husband in a way. We're just stuck together.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, that's why it is nice that my one constant has been Shakira. And I think we do have like very like good chemistry together.
I love that.
Yeah, she makes me break all the time in rehearsals.
Yeah, she's just absolutely fantastic. To bring us back a little bit, I remember seeing you do improv and thinking you were so funny. I maybe had even, I don't know, were you and Derek doing Tuprov yet, or were like at that time?
Well, actually, no. We were in some capacity before the pandemic, because I remember we did a couple of shows. Like I think we did one in the Inner Sanctum, and we did like we're now, our Tuprov team is now called Questies,
yes,
which is named after this World of Warcraft add-on, which I didn't even remember. That's something that Derek brought up recently to sort of resurface the lore.
Yes.
But I think our first name was like Christmas in Pasadena or something.
Okay.
Or Christmas in Palm Springs. Yeah, it was somewhere in Southern California that was in LA. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. This is sorry to drag this out too long, but I just remember watching you do improv and thinking you were so funny. And then when we came back, like in 2022, when Herald Night got reignited, you were placed on a team, and then you stayed, and you were on Gag then, and now you're on your amazing team with a lot of people I really love. This is She.
Yes. Oh, and thank God I got placed, because I didn't know when the theater was going to reopen, like post-pandemic, but I was thinking, I was like, oh God, if I have to audition, like that's going to be, I'm not in the headspace to like do a Herald audition. So to kind of like be able to circumvent that was amazing.
Clutch. And that must be a surreal experience to circumvent that. And then, but also you're fantastic, and there's a reason that all worked out. So I love it. But that's how you and I know each other, and we get to see each other around, every so often when our nights maybe line up, or one of us just happens to be there. That's like how I know you. But what else do you want to share about yourself with the listener today?
Oh God. Yeah, I do improv. I'm from Hollister, California, which has the same name as a store, but is pretty inland. I'm
not a lot of seagulls there, I'm guessing.
No, we get some stowaways,
Okay.
some people who are lost on their way back to the coast. I went to high school in Monterey, which is another fun fact, which is
Oh,
like
no
a big
way.
Little Lies town. Yeah.
Can I like hit the brakes there and sit here for a second?
Please. Oh my God, please. Like, yeah, one of the sequels. Yeah.
So I was there. Exactly. Yeah. Caw caw. That's probably not a seagull. What seagulls say? Bird noise. And I sit down. My parents have a home in Pacific Grove, and I was there like 2 weeks ago. So I'm like a little familiar with the area because they've been like half living there for about a decade.
Oh, wait, then you were probably like pretty familiar. I mean, Pacific Grove is like, yeah, I mean, that's Monterey. That's the Bay, yeah.
That's so funny. So you went to high school there. I fully interrupted you just to be like, hey, here's a connection. But what were you, as you were saying, I'm sorry.
No. That's sort of, I was trying to think of like, what do I want them to know?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, wait, where in Pacific Grove do they live?
They live, I would say near they're kind of in between the Pacific Grove Golf Course and Lovers Point.
Okay, totally. I'm trying to think of like, I think I do know where the golf course is. I definitely know where Lovers Point is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The golf course, I think, is like, I want to say part of it is at the beginning of 17 Mile Drive-ish.
Totally, like sort of like on the exit out of like Pebble Beach, yeah.
Which, to be fair, when we were there, we took a little drive and we brought my best friend, and because he had never been there and he really wanted to see that because his dad really likes it. But there's like 3 golf courses on that stretch, so I might be just confusing the end of one with another. So who knows? Totally,
it's like golf course land, yeah.
Yeah. Bit of gossip for you / sad news. Have you ever been to the little like snack shack in Pacific Grove near Lovers Point?
Oh yeah, I have some vague recollection, but obviously like don't have memories. But is she gone?
Well, with the vague, I was gonna say with the vague memory, then you're gonna love this gossip. That yes, I was there because a few weeks ago, and I really wanted a corn dog because they had good corn dogs, and the place is closed, unfortunately.
Now I will never have a memory.
Now I'm just sad that I brought it up. This I just teased you about this corn dog, and you can never have it.
No, I'm trying to think of like what my nostalgic places in Monterey were like the OCO, which is now closed, which is like an indie movie theater, like on Alvarado or off of Alvarado Street. And like I saw Palo Alto with James Franco in that theater. I saw Under the Skin. Under the Skin was great.
Wait, who is Joseph Gordon-Levitt in that, or am I thinking of a different movie?
Oh, of Under the Skin?
Yeah.
Under the Skin is like, it's ScarJo, and she's like an alien who lands. It's like a horror. I forget what the director's name is, but like it's she's just kind of like living a human life. Not a lot of dialogue, like atmospheric. Was really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's definitely not the movie I'm thinking of, but it sounds super interesting.
If it's like, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like, this is also just ScarJo. Maybe that's why I'm thinking of it. But like, what was that movie? That was another. Maybe I also saw the OCO. Was that one where he's like addicted to porn? Don John. Yeah.
That is the movie you're thinking of, but I think I'm thinking of a movie. It might be called Mysterious Skin, and he plays he's really young in it, and I remember. I don't know why I don't know how I got us here. I'm sorry. But you saw a lot of movies at that old theater. You said the OCO.
The OCO, yeah. Okay. And then there's Cafe Triste, which is also closed now, which is sad. And that was on Alvarado. Yeah.
At some point, one of us is going to remember a business that is not closed in that area.
Yeah, Taco Bell's thriving around that area, as far as I know. I'm like, Plumes. Plumes is still going. That's like a coffee shop in that area.
Okay, phew.
Yeah.
I'll do a wellness check on Plumes the next time I visit, and I'll report back just to be safe.
Yeah, no, please let me know how she is.
I will. That's so great. Last mini tangent here. You brought up Taco Bell. Do you happen to be a Taco Bell fan at all?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Can
Yeah.
I get... How about this? If you don't mind being vulnerable with me, will you tell me your Taco Bell order?
Oh, of course. Good. I will usually just get like Crunchwrap Supreme.
Okay.
And then if I'm really hungry, maybe like a side like taco or two, like soft taco. Yeah.
Nice. That's kind of like me. I'll get a premium item. I like the cheesy gordita crunch a lot. And then
okay.
yeah, I like the soft tortilla over the hard shell. And the sauce, it's great. And then I like to get also like a smaller item, like a bean and cheese burrito, like the basic one, or a soft taco, something like that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yum. Yeah.
As a Crunchwrap fan, gosh, I bet you didn't expect this to be coming up today. As a Crunchwrap fan,
No, I am fully prepared for this.
okay,
Yeah.
huge. Have you ever had Taco Bell breakfast?
No.
Okay.
I didn't even know that they were going into a new medium. Yeah.
They are, and Nick, I love it. It's delicious because the signature item of this Taco Bell breakfast is the breakfast crunch wrap, and the breakfast crunch wrap is a tortilla like the original, instead of a like a flat hard tortilla in there as like the structure. It's a hash brown, and then it's eggs and either your choice of bacon or sausage with it.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I'm not to sell you on it too hard, but if you're ever curious and that sounds tasty, it's worth a try because it's so good. And I can't believe this is happening, but the person who got me onto Taco Bell breakfast is Mike Steele, who I've now brought up 3 times in like 40 minutes.
Whoa. Okay.
Yes.
A huge influence.
Huge influence, Mike. If truly we talk, I'm having such a good time talking with you that I'm like, I'm just going to keep sharing. Mike and I did a podcast together in December. I'm not sure if you're a fan of the SSX Tricky games at all, the snowboarding series.
Oh, I'm familiar, but
Familiar?
haven't dabbled a ton. Yeah.
We did a bonus episode on one of those games, and he was just talking my ear off about Taco Bell breakfast and how I needed to try it. And literally the next day I went out and got it. So Mike, wherever you are, your influence is felt here today. Nick, did you get to share whatever you wanted about yourself with the audience?
I think so. Yeah. I'll try to think if anything else percolates. But yeah, those are some of the things that where I hail from. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you for basically letting me hijack the About You section to talk about Monterey and Taco Bell breakfast. Before we get into your general history with video games, will you please introduce what you brought on for the main event later and call me by your game?
I brought in Knights of the Old Republic 2 by Obsidian Entertainment. I think it's Obsidian. I think Entertainment is the second part of their company name.
I'm looking at the part that I copy and pasted from Wikipedia on my little episode guide here, and you nailed it. It's Entertainment.
Wait, incredible.
No relation to Charles Entertainment Cheese, I'm sure.
I hope not.
Yeah. Me too. Better not be. Well, I'm so excited to hear from you about this game later. You know, peek behind the curtain for the listener. Sometimes when having a guest on or starting that conversation, I'll ask them to throw out a few games as an option. I thankfully you were kind enough to let me sort of steer you towards this because there's some games that not that I like the more obscure ones, and this isn't necessarily obscure, but when a game comes up that I fear may never be talked about again on the show, I love to jump at the chance. So I'm really pumped to hear from you about this.
Me too. I'm gonna try not to talk about it too much for the section. But yeah, I feel like it's like, I think it's having more of a reevaluation, or has like maybe even just over the past like decade. Because the first one is so like lauded, but I think in the community the second one is more loved at this point. But that's my feeling. Yeah.
I was getting a little bit of that. I was getting that same sense, you know, doing a little bit of research for this episode. So I think you're not the only one out. I think there's a lot of truth to that. But before we talk about KOTOR 2, let's get into your history with games. Do you have, like, what are some of your earliest memories of playing or looking at a video game?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think like definitely through my brother. My brother is like 16 months older than me, but felt much older developmentally, and also just like grade. But like he was 3 grades above me just because of like I was a little bit older. This is part of my lore.
Yes, this
I
is
was a little
huge.
old for my grade. Like I went to kindergarten like a year late, did extra year preschool. But anyway, yeah, my brother's playing stuff like pretty young, and I think like, but maybe one of my first ever memories was at like my babysitter's house, hanging out with her son and Mark, and like he was playing Crash Bandicoot, Candicoot, for his last letter is, in his garage, which I maybe have mentioned the location already. But yeah, that's one of my first memories. And then like, Halo was huge. Like that's one of my like first big video games. I remember another babysitter of mine, but I think his name was Sean, like showing me Pokemon. He's playing Gold or Crystal on his Pokemon Color. And that was huge for me because then I got Pokemon Crystal as one of my first video games that was like my video game that I was playing by myself and like finally doing something for me.
Yes,
yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of like watching my brother and other people play video games for a while when I was little before sort of like then engaging myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Crystal was sort of like your personal, like, you had like ownership over it. It was like, I'm playing this game. I'm not necessarily just, watching somebody else do it.
Yeah. And it's funny because I have also memories of like, it feels like I played that video game. It's like, oh no, I just watched my brother play that game. Like I've like never played BioShock, but I just watched him play BioShock.
Yes.
Both of them. And I have played all the Halo games. I do. And I recently replayed all of those like a year ago or so. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I went through the campaign. Yeah.
Me and the producer and my editor of this show, Jeremy Schmidt, who's a mod writer. I'm not sure if you've met before. Jeremy and I do a stream almost every Tuesday where this year we've been playing through the old Halos in co-op over the internet.
Oh, totally. That's what I did with my friend. Yeah, we did like the co-op campaign of the first 3.
Oh, nice.
I haven't played like I think like it's like 4 on when they got like Bungie was sold or like the rights or whatever. I haven't played any past that. Yeah.
Gotcha. I'm more familiar with the first 3 than anything else, but I've already made it about myself. I have played the campaign of 4 once or twice, but we're playing Reach for the first time. Have you ever touched Reach before?
Yes, like I definitely dabbled. That was one where it was like one of my neighbors growing up, Alex, I think had Reach, and I would play it at his house growing up, but then I never had it or went through it myself.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Well, if you're ever curious, I think it's really great. So there's a little recommend for you if you want ever dip back into Halo. But I think I got us off topic because you were talking about some early games, and Halo, you were just on the Halo train, I think.
Yes, the Halo, yeah. So Halo was huge for me, like Pokemon Crystal, all the Pokemon games. That is one franchise that I am dedicated to, and I played every single installment of up until like Scarlet Violet this past like year or 2.
Oh.
And yeah, I'm trying to think of like what else, and then also the Knights of the Republic games, which we'll get to, were like also huge for me. But we were like primarily Xbox kids, but we also had a PS2.
Okay.
That was the one PlayStation console we had. And so I played like a lot of games on that as well. Like I remember a really memorable game that I replayed when I was a little bit older was like, it was like Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist of the Roses.
Okay.
And it was like, it was War of the Roses, which like Game of Thrones is based on. But then like they then sort of transplanted Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifics onto it. So it was like, like I'm trying to think of like Margaret Buford, I think was one of the characters, and she's also a character in English history. And then it was just like My Valentine from Yu-Gi-Oh, but with like that name. And then like Yugi was just like named like something Lancaster. Yeah, it was
wow.
good. Yeah.
Interesting. So some of these are like, this is building like your base, like the earliest, some of your earlier memories of games, right?
Yes, yeah, those are definitely like early. Like that sort of era is sort of like maybe like 5 to like 12.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's always fun to get an idea of what that's like for people. I'm going to probe a little bit here. Since you've played the entire mainline Pokemon series, do you have, outside of maybe Crystal, that first generation you played, do you have a favorite generation that sticks out in your mind?
Oh, totally. I mean, Crystal was my first, like Gen 2 was my first generation, but my favorite gen overall is 3, which is like Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald.
Okay.
And I love like the Pokemon from that generation, and then also I love the region Hoenn just a lot. And I just have the most nostalgia, because that's also, I think, when I invested. I mean, I played a lot of also like Diamond and Pearl, Black and White as well, but like I think I had the most, like I literally had I had like 2 copies of Sapphire because I lost like both at different points and I had to restart over. And then I also then had Emerald. I still have my Emerald copy at home.
Whoa, that's so cool. That's I was at the perfect age for the first generation, and so I was as into it as you could be. And so when Gen 2 came out, I was ready for it. And Gen 2 is my personal favorite gen. But I fell out of, like, that was when, in my, at least my like age, my grade, Pokemon wasn't cool anymore. So I never played the Gen 3. And I asked you that. I was kind of curious as to what your favorites were, because I've got some missing generations. Like, I never played 3. I never played 5. I never played even the last generation I didn't touch, or Sun and Moon I never got to. But I've got I almost have one version of every one of them, so I really want to go back. And so I was just kind of curious. Do you have like a favorite Pokemon from Gen 3, since you mentioned you really like the Mons?
Of course. Yeah.
Ooh.
I have my 2 favorites are from Gen 3, which is Altaria and Melodic. Those are my 2 all times. And then I also that. Like, not from Gen 3, but I love Clefable. I love Starmie.
Starmie's so cool.
That was probably, Starmie's one of my first favorite Pokemon when there's only generations 1 and maybe 2, because I loved Misty from the anime when I was really little. And I loved water type Pokemon, and I also loved psychic type, partly also because it was Misty and then Sabrina from Gen 1, the gym leader, and I loved the Abra Alakazam line. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I could talk Pokemon for a while, even though I've probably played just half of them. I don't know if I'm going to be able to move my camera too much, but I have you can see a bunch of game posters behind me, but I've got
I see a Bulbasaur.
That's me.
Oh, and Ho and Lugia, and that's the Tin Tower.
So that vibes. Is an Ecruteak City vacation poster, visit Ecruteak City or something. And then the other one is a piece of art that my ex-girlfriend had made for me. So I'm a gym leader in Bulbasaur, because Bulbasaur is my personal favorite. And so...
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, enough about me too. What would you say, going back to your history with video games, you said your family you were Xbox kids. Was there a console that came after that, or that you would say you felt the most ownership over? That's my personal favorite console that I ever had.
Ooh, great question. Growing up, probably the handheld stuff was the most for years, the most personal, sacred to me, which was my Game Boy Advance. I don't think I ever had a Game Boy Color. I think my first was Game Boy Advance, and then I had an SP, and then Nintendo DS and the various Nintendo DSs after that. Truly up until she's kind of dusty, but I have her like right here.
Oh, is
Yeah,
that
my
a light or a DSi?
3DS, yeah.
Gorgeous. Oh, I love that.
But yeah, the handhelds were definitely like mine, and like I'd say also because like the Xbox, that was always primarily more so my brother's.
Okay.
Although I later claimed ownership, which is kind of how I got back into Knights of the Old Republic. Was that like once the original Xbox, like my brother's no longer using it, and then I kind of just started playing old games on it and like whatever we had on tap. But yeah, like the handhelds and also like the Wii.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Do you have games that stick out from the Wii that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, definitely all like the classics, like the like Mario Kart, Mario Party. I didn't play so many because I'm a big like RPG fan, but I didn't do so many. I feel like on the Wii. Oh, I mean, this is Switch, and now I'm like moving ahead,
It's
like
all good.
way ahead. But like Fire Emblem Three Houses on the Switch,
Oh,
that was
yes.
that was also on my list that I sent to you.
Yeah.
Was like that's one of my more recent like favorite games of all time.
Ooh, what? Do you remember what house you played at?
Oh yeah, I replayed it twice, and I did my first run through was Blue Lions, and then second was Golden Deer. I haven't played Black Eagles because I don't like Edelgard, and I think she's annoying.
I didn't end up beating that game, but I did. It was my first Fire Emblem. Played about maybe 20 hours or so, and I did go with Edelgard's house, and then
Totally.
It was interesting learning about where that game went. I was like, oh, that would have been my future, huh? Just based on that choice, without spoiling too much. Yes. So, did you end up playing Fire Emblem Engage at all?
No, that is Engage the like more combat oriented like
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah,
It came
where it's
out-
like different. Yeah, it's like not this classic like turn-based like chess almost. It's like
Oh no, this is I think the same battle
Oh,
style.
Is it red hair, blue hair, like split? Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it is. It's the
Yeah.
toothpaste hair character. This isn't a popular opinion, but I ended up actually loving that game, and I finished it. There's plenty of things in it that I had to like get past, just choice wise and like design, but like overall, if you like Fire Emblem combat, I found it really satisfying. So could be a game for your future at some point.
No, totally. I think it also depends on like what you like Fire Emblem for, because I think it depends on the person. Like my friend Nick is a huge Fire Emblem fan, but I think like they gravitate more towards like the combat,
Sure.
which I think like one of like the drawbacks maybe of Three Houses is that like the maps maybe aren't as like complex or like difficult, like I remember I actually like played on hard mode my first time because I'd read online so much that normal on Three Houses was too easy, which did turn out to be like, I think pretty accurate. But I'm more in it like I love the story, the lore.
Yeah.
And Three Houses story is it's incredible.
I think that from what I played of Three Houses and what I've heard, it is a far better and more interesting, I think, story than Engage. Like I like Engage, but the story's kind of interesting, but like Three Houses was just a triumph.
Yeah, and I think, but I heard that Engage, like that was also my friend was saying was that like the combat in Engage and the maps were a lot more like par for the course for like Best of Fire Emblem, like more difficult, more challenging, more engaging.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think like that was like a level up compared to like Three Houses. And I think like maybe Engage was in development before Three Houses or
interesting.
Which is why it's also kind of like very a bit like it's pretty different. Trying to think of the word I'm looking for, but like in terms of just like execution, like style than like Three Houses. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I have a few more questions for you about your history with games that I'd like to ask. The first of which is, being a big RPG fan, I've heard about some of this style, a lot of turn-based stuff that you enjoy. I think KOTOR, that series kind of falls into that a little bit with the combat, at least from the first game that I've played. But have you ever played a first-person RPG that you've enjoyed?
Totally. First person, like you're in their eyes, essentially.
Yeah, like have you dipped into like the Elder Scrolls or Fallout or anything like that?
Oh, of course. Yeah. That was another one I think I sent over was like Oblivion, Elder Scrolls 4.
That's right.
Is one of my favorite games of all time. And I love Skyrim too, and I also have like, logged many an hour in Skyrim. But I'm pretty partial to Oblivion, I think, because I have more nostalgia for it, because that was like a game where it's like cumulatively, like over the course of my life, I probably logged like close to like 1,500 hours in that game, because I played so much, like at my house, at my cousin's house, like at my neighbor, aforementioned neighbors, on his Xbox 360. Like we just would like make a new character like every week.
Wow.
And kind of like do the same things over and over, like go to the arena. Like I really, really love Oblivion. Yeah.
I forgot that you had put that on your list that I scrolled through, but I was just kind of curious because you had listed so much RPG love, and wow, so you have a really like great range of like styles that you've enjoyed over the years, it seems like.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I hope so.
That's fun. Looking forward, I know that there's always games that are going to be coming out. Is there a game that you're looking forward to that hasn't been released yet? And if you don't have an answer to that, is there anything that you just haven't played that you've been wanting to get to?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I have answers for both. I mean, the media one I just was reminded of because a friend sent me a link to our I have an AOE group chat. I have a group of friends I play a lot of Age of Empires 4 with, which recently now we've taken a little bit of a break.
Mm-hmm.
Age of Mythology, the new, like the remake of it, is coming out in August or September, I think. So I'm really looking forward to that. Age of Mythology was a huge game for me growing up. Like I played that a lot on the PC and would only play with like hacks, because you could summon like these bears with like the Canadian flag on their backs, and they shot lasers out of their eyes, and they could move like as units from like one side of the map to the other in like half a second.
And how could you just not engage with that? That's amazing.
It was good. And then also there was like Woofu was the hack to summon the flying purple hippos. They like shot lava out of their mouths, and they were flying units. Yeah, they were also really incredible.
Sounds like the greatest game I've ever heard of.
Age of Mythology was amazing.
Wow.
And then in terms of like stuff is in my library, there's a lot of stuff I need to get to. That's just been sitting there for now like years.
Mm-hmm.
One that I got to like that was now like a year ago, but it was like I finally played. It was Dragon Age Origins, and I was so glad I finally played, because I loved that game. It was like I was just like a classic BioWare, where I was like, yeah, they were in their bag, they knew what they were doing. And Persona 4 Golden is one that's been sitting. I really want to play because I know I'm going to really like it, but I'm also just daunted by the fact that it's like, oh, that's going to be like an 100+ hour investment.
Yes. That's fantastic. So many just like I feel like I learned a lot about my guests on the show, and you and I are, we're familiar with each other, but I wouldn't say we know each other super well. And this has been, I'm just taking a moment to sort of step back and be like, this is one of the reasons I really love doing the show, is it gives me such a chance to connect with somebody like you, or people that I know really well. So this is just so fun for me to hear from you about games that are special to you, or your like how you're playing so many games with friends and stuff. This is this has been a blast already. It sounds like I'm wrapping us up. I promise I'm not. I just was like really feeling that and wanted to share that with you.
Totally. Wait, also, I'm curious, like, what are your sort of like top games?
So I do have a list, and I'm going to have you back for a top 10 episode, where I usually bring back I try to bring 3 friends at a time back. Like a group of people who are buddies, and then I make them list their top 10 favorite games of all time, which is a to most a daunting task that a lot of people express regret over their lists all the time, but I'll have to have you back. But I know my favorite game of all time. My personal favorite is The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. So I'm a big I'm a big Zelda head. But I like all sorts of games. And I find that even though I host a video game podcast and have been doing so for 4.5 years and playing games most of my life, I'm always discovering new games or series or genres that I've just never even dipped into. You brought up, and BioWare's pretty relevant to our conversation today, even though BioWare didn't work on KOTOR 2. But I recently, I'm playing Mass Effect 2 for the first time, and I just started it.
That's also in my library because that's another one where it's like I think I have all three. But I know I'm going to also love them, but I'm also part of it was because I started playing Mass Effect 1, now it's years ago. I think I was in college. And I encountered some glitch 10 hours in, and then it was I'd essentially have to start the game over.
Oh no.
And I just lost the momentum, the will to keep going.
I don't blame you at all. I don't know if I would ever recover from that. I don't think I would start a new playthrough fresh then either.
Yeah, but now it's been long enough. But okay, wait. Also Majora's Mask.
Yes.
Because Zelda's a huge blind spot for me, and I wish it. I played one of the very that's a very early video game memory that's percolating. Is that I remember at the tennis courts growing up, there was in the little shack where the kids would hang out while their parents played. There was I don't know if it was either Nintendo 64, but it could have been a NES.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, one of those early systems. But there was a Zelda game on that. And I remember playing that. But super fuzzy.
Yes.
But the only other Zelda game I played, which was for the Wii, was I played Skyward Sword, but I didn't finish it. Yeah, and so I had a lot of friends who are big. I have a lot of friends who are huge Zelda heads.
Yeah.
And they are all that shouldn't have been your intro game into the franchise.
It's funny. Coincidentally, that is the previous episode that came out before yours will come out, was about Skyward Sword, my guest brought on. And it's interesting because, it's one of the latest games in the series when it comes to release, but technically it's the beginning of the timeline sort of, but I would also say definitely not a great one to start with. I love it, but there are some issues with it that don't make it so fun to play sometimes.
Totally. I think also I just because when I play video games, I'm so story oriented, and I honestly don't really care too much about I have a lot of friends who are really into games for combat mechanics, or
Sure.
they're wow, I love I love the combat and the fighting in this game, and that's something I never really if it's really good, I'll be I'll notice it, but I kind of just do it for the story. In Skyward Sword, there was with the Wii remote, you had to do specific motions and stuff to defeat certain enemies, and I just would ignore that completely and just kind of flail.
Yes.
And then obviously that made the game pretty hard for me.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, last question for you before we finally move to break. Is there a game that you haven't mentioned from your history yet that you would just be so disappointed that you didn't shout out today?
Oh God. No, I'm trying to think of whenever I'm trying to get my friends to play video games, or not or play specific games, the games I'm always forcing on them is Fire Emblem Three Houses, Dragon Age Origins, Oblivion, and the Knights of the Republic games, all of which I've mentioned. And I think that's I also love Undertale, and
Oh, cool.
Doki Doki Literature Club I really love as well. That one goes down easy. It's 5 hours. Yeah.
I actually took a video game narrative writing class last year, and we had to play that game for that class actually. Or at least the first. Wait a second. I think I'm mixing up games here.
Oh no, please. What was the one you're thinking of? Yeah.
I'm thinking of the game that, without spoiling too much, starts off as like a dating sim.
No, that's Doki Doki Literature
Okay.
Club. Yeah,
For some reason,
and
I was
then
like,
it sort
wait.
of devolves. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Super interesting game that I was really had me in a I don't even know what to say. I was just captured by it, and it was almost overwhelming.
Yes, and I shouldn't have maybe me saying it goes down easy was a little bit crazy because it
Well,
goes
it's
down
quick.
tough. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's a fast game, but it's tough.
Yeah, definitely.
There's hard parts. But I'm also like RuneScape was huge for me growing up.
Oh my
That's like a
goodness.
huge blind spot that I forgot. Was and I was I mean, you know this because I just we talked about Reactivators podcast, but wow, World of Warcraft was a huge part of my life. I played
Yes.
from 4th to 7th grade, and that was I played WoW every single day, after school. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, Nick, thank you for coming on and sharing, what seems to be just a fraction of your history with games. This has been so much fun to just start this conversation with you. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll finally get into all things KOTOR 2. So I'll see you on the other side.
Cool.
Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game. I, your host, Connor McCabe, am still here with my guest, Nick Tiffany. Nick, welcome back.
Hey, welcome back as well.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel so at home. Like I mentioned before, the break or earlier in the show, it's finally time for the main event. We're going to get into all things Knights of the Old Republic 2, and I'm going to start us off with some table setting. But again, if you want to jump in at any time and share a factoid or something important, you got the green light.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. I'll hop in if I feel the urge.
I love it. So without further ado, here we go. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords, is a role-playing video game developed by Obsidian Entertainment, as Nick told us earlier, and published by LucasArts. It is the sequel to BioWare's KOTOR 1, the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, proper, and was released for the Xbox on December 6th, 2004. That was the initial release date. It also came out on Windows just a couple months later. It says February 8th, 2005, and it's on many consoles at this point. KOTOR 2 starts 5 years after the events of the first game and follows the story of the Exile, a Jedi Knight who is exiled from the Jedi Order. During this time, the Jedi Order has been almost completely wiped out by the Sith, and the game begins with the protagonist waking up from unconsciousness on an asteroid mining facility. After the player escapes with the help of their party members, they find the person who exiled them 10 years ago, who sends the protagonist on a mission to seek out the remaining Jedi to fight against the Sith. I keep saying protagonist, and I think the reason that word is in this paragraph so much is because, like KOTOR 2, don't you have the ability to craft your own player character?
Exactly, yeah. And I think canonically now, I think the character in lore, which I don't even know, it's because of Star Wars, I don't know if it's it's been retconned as legends, but it's the Exile is because she's the Jedi Exile, and canonically she's a woman, and her name is Mitra Surik, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, in the game you can make them whoever you want and name them whoever you want. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. It was funny, as I was sort of on autopilot reading that paragraph, the word protagonist came up so many times to where I was like, something I gotta bring this up. So thank you for that clarification there. Little bit more info about this game is that the game's critical reception upon its release was generally positive. Praise was given to the story, characters, and writing, which were noted to be more in more of a gray area than the original KOTOR, and the game received criticism for being too similar to its predecessor in terms of graphics and gameplay systems, as well as being launched in an incomplete state, which I'm sure will come up. I've got at least a little bit of a deep dive into that for our fun fact later. But that is honestly the thing I know the most about this game is that it was launched and had a rush development cycle. Nick, are there any other little details about this game that we should include before we jump into your history?
Sure. Yeah, that's like kind of covers a lot of like I feel like great summary. I think like the biggest one which you've already hit is just like the fact that it was rush released, and like so often it is compared to the first game, and the first game is so tough because it's like such a like masterpiece, and it's like a real quintessential like Star Wars story.
Yeah.
Which I love about both of them. And also I feel like is, like proof of concept that it's like you don't need, George Lucas or whoever working on a Star Wars like story to make it feel like Star Wars. And you also don't need Han Solo and Chewbacca to make it feel like Star Wars. It's like there's a certain like, themes and a feeling that like make Star Wars feel like Star Wars, which I think both have. But yeah, the rush release is like the biggest,
cool,
biggest piece of lore.
Yeah. I won't be, like I told you, I've never actually played KOTOR 2, and I won't have much to say about the series, but I did a few years ago. Long story short is that I got a new Nintendo Switch, and I got a couple gift cards for Christmas because my previous Switch had gotten stolen, and so my friends bought me a Switch, but my family gave me like these gift cards for Christmas. And so KOTOR 1 is a game I think I played like 6 hours of and was very into, but just it was kind of victim of the new year starting and me getting distracted by other things. But I have like a big fascination with this series. Also, I would describe myself as like a casual Star Wars fan. Like I've seen a lot of stuff, but not everything. I've never read the books. Whatever. I'm probably middle of the road. So the series is very interesting to me. To start for you though, I know that I'm wondering if this will have anything to do with, being an Xbox family growing up. But how did you come to play this game in the first place? Did you play the first one beforehand?
Yeah, no, it's funny because I think I played, and I'm almost positive about this. I played the second one first.
Wow.
Because I played the first one for a little bit, but I remember I played it at my friend's house on his Xbox, and I think we were just too young and we didn't necessarily understand, like, especially like when you're that era of video games where they like there's less hand holding, so if you don't like know how to like bring up your quest log or like like read as well, like you kind of just have to like stumble your way into like the right story beats and like the right to progress forward, since no one's telling you like where to go. So we weren't ever able to get past like oh my God, I'm trying to remember the first, like, is it Terrace or is that the second game? But like the first like city planet that you get on in Nice Old Republic 1.
Yeah.
And then later on when I was a little bit older and like playing the Xbox, like bringing it back out now that the 360, my brother was just playing that. And I played the second one. And I played, for the first time when I was like 11 or 12, I think. Maybe 10. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. That's awesome. Well, getting into your time with the game itself, what is one of the first things that you think about when it comes to KOTOR 2?
Yeah, oh my gosh, like best days of my life. Like I think honestly, like kind of what you hit with just how much I love it, and so much of that love also stems from the fact that it is so, I think, also quintessentially Star Wars, but is also such a departure from a lot of what makes Star Wars, and is like a fun sort of deconstruction of the universe, and it sort of interrogates kind of the tropes of the world in a fun in a fun and like thought-provoking way, because I like the Knights of the Republic, especially compared to the first one. Like what I do love about Star Wars is that like it's so, I love, you know, good versus evil, pretty like black and white morality, but the second one is like very gray, pretty dark, like yeah, and I think that's something I really appreciate about the second one. Like it kind of is like, okay, why is the Jedi perceived as good? Why are the Sith perceived as evil? And kind of like you have this mentor, Kreia, who's one of the main characters, and she's like kind of been around the block a few times, and she like, I don't know if this is really a spoiler, but
feel free.
Yeah. But she's kind of been like on both sides of the coin. Like she's been like Jedi, Sith, everything in between, and she's kind of jaded and essentially sees them as like religious extremists. And it's funny in the lore of the game and the story. It's like post like the events of the first game, which was like, you know, Revan and the Jedi defeating this like, you know, Sith sect led by Darth Malak. It's now referred to as like the Jedi Civil War. And it's interesting to like that's such a cool piece of lore where it's like, oh, it's how like the common people are perceiving this war in their galaxy, which is like they don't see it as like they don't like understand the specifics of Jedi Sith. They're just like, oh, it's those people with the lightsabers like having a civil war. They think they're just kind of like one and the same. And all of that, it's like I'm just like, it's great.
Just eating it up. I feel like we've gotten a lot of I've heard at least sprinkles of appreciation from you about lore in general when it comes to like a lot of the games and stuff we've talked about today.
Yes, that's like my big, what really draws me to a game and like gets me to like replay it. And then also just like engage with that outside of even like, I mean, like hopping like, you know, back sort of in the first section, but like when I played World of Warcraft for years, like so much of my time not playing the game was also just, I would go on WoW Wiki and just like go through articles and just like read up on all the WoW lore in my free time. Yeah, and that's really fun.
I didn't mean to say, I don't know, my response, gosh, that's probably happened many times, but I was suddenly just about to criticize me going, wow, after you talking about your appreciation for WoW lore. Sorry about that. But that's really interesting. I could see how that would be a big draw, or at least a reason that, you know, you and others have appreciation for this game, because that's something I've sort of feel like I've heard echoed by people about both games in the series, really, from what I can remember. And so it's not really a surprise to me to hear that, but it almost bolsters that sort of case for it. I think too, I feel like I hear from a lot of Star Wars fans that this is one of their like top pieces of Star Wars media. Nick Costanza, who you recently were on his Reactivators podcast, Nick, I don't know if it came up on this one, but he loves KOTOR, and he's a Star Wars fan, but KOTOR is like, I want to say, his favorite Star Wars thing. We did a Mass Effect games club to start the year where we played through the first one, and it was his first time, and all he could keep thinking about and bringing up was KOTOR because there's so much shared DNA between those first game, that first game and this game.
Totally. And that's also why I've been wanting to play Mass Effect, is because it's one of those, like, I mean, it's also anything in that sort of, I mean, you know, Knights of the Old Republic 2 is Obsidian, but the first game is BioWare, and they're just like, that golden age of BioWare has so much common DNA, and they hit sort of like, in a good way, I think, like certain types of character archetypes and like story beats and tropes, like Jade Empire. That's another game I didn't mention the first half, but that's a game I love, like, and it's like, I think, classic BioWare in their bag.
Yes.
It's funny, we did talk about that on Reactivators. I think, all right, we touched upon, I think, briefly, but didn't really get into the weeds since it wasn't like the game we were talking about. But like, that's how I feel as well, where it's like, I do love Star Wars in general. Like, I grew up like with the prequels coming out theatrically, so that
Same
was kind
here.
of like my entryway. And then I also had all of the originals on. I'm trying to remember, maybe I did watch the originals first because we had them on VHS, and my favorite growing up was Return of the Jedi. But yeah, like what really, as I got older, whereas like I loved Star Wars when I was little, then I was more into like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, like those are my franchises, Harry Potter. And then what got me back into it when I was a little bit older, like, preteen, teen years, was Knights of the Old Republic. And I think it's
Cool.
like, I'm like, that's my favorite Star Wars thing, like ever, like those properties. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, very cool. When you think about the game as well, is there like a moment in the game that sticks out, whether it's like a story beat or like a place that you go to?
Oh, totally. That's such a good question. Like, shoot, I think probably one of my favorite, like, because you go to different planets in both
Mm-hmm.
games as you like progress through the story. And I'm trying to remember. It's been actually a second since I've replayed the second one, but like I think it's similar to the first one, where it's like there's a little bit of like choose your own. Oh yeah, yeah, because it's like you're looking for your various, like, the surviving Jedi masters and trying to like reestablish this collective now that they've all been like hunted to like near extinction.
Yeah.
And I remember like Korriban, which is now renamed Moraband or Moribund or something like that, in like canon lore, which I don't like.
Uh-huh.
But that, because it's Korriban is in the first Knights of the Old Republic, where it's like that you go to like the Sith Academy and you have to like infiltrate it, and the second one it's like that's all abandoned. It's just like you're going through the various like Sith tombs that are there with the old like Sith like lords who are
Oh,
like
interesting.
laid to rest. And that area is very like haunting, and there's like this one area where you go through and you're like confronted by like an apparition of like Darth Revan, and then like all of your party members, you see like essentially like ghosts or like mirage versions of them, and they like surround you and they keep repeating like apathy is death to you. And it's very
Whoa.
spooky. And
Yeah.
that's sort of like that kind of element, which I think is like that sort of like spookiness, like darker ambiances like throughout the game. And I think that's a very like kind of epitomizes like what I like about the second game, is like it leans into sort of these like darker elements
Yeah,
of
like
Star
it's
Wars.
not
Yeah.
afraid to go places that maybe Star Wars doesn't always go. Is if it's for to draw that sort of conclusion?
Yeah, totally. And that's like one, like, I think what makes the game so interesting, and like I touched upon a little bit earlier, is that like it's deconstructing like, yeah, the Star Wars universe, where it's like what I love about Star Wars is like I do love, yeah, that sort of black and white morality, like with the first game, but it like plays, yeah, more of like these shades of gray. And it's no longer like, oh, you're a Jedi, like you're a good guy. It's like showing you Jedi, like, oh, another great character is like Atris, who is and that's another restored content thing, which is a kind of a little bit of a bummer, but she's
Mm.
still super interesting in the original. But it's like she's like an old, I forget if she's like was one of your masters or she's just kind of like a peer, but she was
Okay.
on the council, because it's like in the game, the exile is exiled from like, the Jedi community. I don't know,
Sure.
like, yeah, from like the temple, and like cut off from
Kicked
the
off their Herald team.
Force. Yeah, exactly. Did not make it through cuts. But and Atris kind of like spearheaded slash was like a huge vocal like opponent of yours, and like felt, because your character decided to join the war front and like join Revan and like fighting this battle. And yeah, and
Mm.
she like is this, holier than thou like Jedi master who says she's like, so much better than you, as like a paragon of virtue. And then behind the scenes, she's not doing so well, and she's like
Oh.
kind of like there's a cutscene towards like the end where she's just been listening to like these Sith holocrons that she collected, and it's like showing how she's like really fallen from grace, and like yeah, showing that where it's like the lines get blurred, where it's like, yeah, she might be like a Jedi or still like cosplaying as one, but she's essentially just like dark side at this point. And then
Yeah.
there's more of that in the restored content mod, I believe, but that was not in the game that got actually released.
That's so interesting. What a it I feel like that might be such an interesting part of the game because I don't know, not to draw too many worldly conclusions, but that reminds me of certain aspects of, I don't know, society and even our lives today. So it's kind of cool to see how Star Wars, or at least, KOTOR 2 is able to bring in something that has like a nugget of, whether it's truth or just like a tethered to reality. Maybe that's something that can make some of the storytelling in this powerful.
Yeah, because it's like, and what I love is like Kreia, your mentor, who's like the kind of gray Jedi. Gray Jedi / like she might just be a spoiler, but like she might just actually be bad a lot of the time.
Sure.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
But she like kind of gets you to interrogate. She's like, okay, everyone says the Jedi is good, everyone says Sith is bad, but if you like boil down their philosophies, like because they have those like. I forget exactly how. I wish I had it memorized. I haven't touched it on my forearm. But it's like through serenity, I like gain grace or whatever is like the Jedi one. Through like this, I gain like, it's like very like Zen, kind of like Buddhist. And then the Sith one is like through power, I gain freedom. Through like power, I break my chains. Like, and she's essentially being like, neither is inherently like good or bad morally. They're just different approaches, and both of them are just playing with like extremism and like are like uninteresting and like limiting and like and like I mean with real world conclusions it's like Atreus is kind of like almost the equivalent I guess of like evil like Christian person where it's like thinks that they're holier than thou because of like what they like subscribe to, but then in practice is like not a good person. That again tying back to that, like you don't have to look far in our world, and this is my opinion, but I think others would agree, you don't have to look far in our world to see examples of that. So that's really interesting. I wanted to ask you as well about when you've played this game before, whether it was your first playthrough or a return to it. How do you approach your character? And this might give us a window into your taste as an RPG player, but for KOTOR 2, do you remember, were you making Nick in the game? Were you making a fictional character? What did you do? Oh, totally. I always did like a fictional character. I forget now like what I've named my various girls. But always like a fictional character. I used to like think so much harder about my video game avatars. But then it'd be so funny where I'd be like, oh, God, I need to get the perfect name, and then it'd be like Ashley, like Brittany.
Yes, that's so. I love that so much.
Yeah, that was more during like the 2000s, I think.
Yes.
During the Ashley heyday, but not definitely an avatar that's not really like based off my own name or like myself, but in character creation like I would always play like in the first both times because I think at the first one you start as like a different class and the second one you actually just start as a Jedi and I think I'd always play mostly the Sentinel, which is like kind of the mixture between the martial and the force power, like it's kind of the balanced version. And then I'd play Counselor a lot, which is the force based Jedi class, is more force oriented. And then I played as, which is when I was little and I played through it the first time, I was all the way Sith bad. And then every other time I played since, I've always been light side and I can't do dark side.
Tying back to our sort of like fable or morality conversation earlier, which I can't even remember if that was before we were recording or if it was on pod, but I can, there's a lot of similarity. There's some similarities there. I at this point would love to get into some of the context of when you played this game, and I know since you've returned to it, it's whichever experience feels right to talk about, we can. I want to sort of start though with a little scene painting. Can you do some scene painting and sort of describe the room where you would have either first played this game or had one of your memorable times with it?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's either both, like moving between which TV was available. The like living room, trying to think of the orientation of the living room at that point, but like chair, like armchair moved to be like very close to TV, Xbox below, kitchen in the back, family room, kitchen connection,
Okay, cool.
one big room, and couches around, and there's some big windows to the side.
All right.
But it's nighttime.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Although if I played in like my parents' room, I play more during the day since they had lots of shades and stuff to minimize glare.
Yes.
Yeah.
What a classic strategy. When thinking back to the times when you played it, are there any memories, broad or specific, that tie you back to this time?
Totally. God. Any memory, like specific to the game or in general?
I would say like just in general, like it could be specific to the game if you remember like a moment that you were playing, but I'm a little more digging into like when you were playing it, like what you were up to, or was this like a summer that was like sticks out in your mind?
Totally. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like one particular because with those games, I've replayed them so many times, and there was a good, especially in high school, like a good 4 years or so where it's like every single year I replayed both games.
Wow.
And sometimes like I'd finish a playthrough, then immediately start my next one. So it does kind of like blend.
Yeah, for sure.
I vaguely recall summer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And yeah. Oh, I remember like one period I was watching like Gravity Falls through for the first time while playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that is so reminiscent of my first time playing Skyrim. I brought it home. I was in college, and I brought it home on the last winter break I ever had, because it was the last time I was in school. And I brought home my 360. I played Skyrim, and I was watching Freaks and Geeks at the time for the first time. So I was like those two pieces of media couldn't be more different, but are like linked in my head.
No, totally. And I think that's like, for me, and maybe also because like, I mean, Gravity Falls is so summer coded as well, because it like takes place over the course of one summer, but it was like my summer, their summer.
Oh yeah.
Knights of the Old Republic, maybe summer.
Yeah. Do you remember outside of playing video games, were there other things that you would get up to?
During like, God, when I was like playing through them like the first time when I was like 11 or 12, a lot of that period, like free time was like video games. Like, I mean, I would have been like, fifth grades, like, so like playing soccer, playing tennis, and then when I was a little bit older, like in high school, that point I had gone into like performing, like I was doing like theater at school. Theater is also like once I started doing that outside school, or outside of, I guess I was doing like a community theater. I stopped playing as much World of Warcraft, and then, but I think that also opened me up to other games like Knights of the Republic, because I had more time.
Oh, that's cool. That's interesting. Do you have any like, whether it's a playthrough that was most memorable, or like a moment from your life, like does any of that really stick out when you think back to this game?
Totally. Totally. Yeah. I'm trying to like,
and I know you've played this game, I don't know, 10 times.
Yeah. Like both of them, like, and now I think I maybe played the first one slightly more, like, than, but yeah, I just when I played it through the first, or not the first time, but it was like the second, I guess it would have been like the second time when I was a little bit older and maybe appreciated more. I think it just struck more like memories of it is just like how much I loved it. I was like, wow, this is like the best thing I've ever played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there, I don't have many more questions to pepper you with. I got like one more thing, and then I'm going to sort of open the door for you to like essentially put a bow on this and like what place KOTOR 2 held for you, but since this is a game that you've replayed so many times, I know you had mentioned that you're almost exclusively a light side player now. What do you think, are there ways that you play differently on your playthroughs? Will you try different things, or do you return because of the comfort of it? I want to like dive into that a little bit.
Totally. Definitely the latter, the comfort. Like that's true for like pretty much all video games I replay. Is like I rarely deviate from what I like. I might class differently. Like that's saying I'm also like I'm replaying Baldur's Gate right now and I like will do different classes. Like but I will not, if there's a story, particularly if there's like good, bad sort of like alignment, I'll always be good. I'll always make like pretty much the same decisions. I just like I'm also such a I'm such a completionist when I play games, where it's like I want to recruit every single person I'm able to. I want to complete like all their quests. I want to do like the best version of it as possible so that everyone's happy. I guess like I'm still like a people pleaser even in like the video game world. That
happens to me too sometimes in games. I just finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and it was very similar. I was like, I can't have someone be unhappy. I think that might stem, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to play like my own therapist really quick. Majora's Mask, that's the whole point of that game, is serving other people and so I'm a good person, and sort of completing these quests that are all have like emotional stakes for everyone. So I also feel like I did that. I do that in games in general. But away from me for a second, on our way, sort of out of this discussion, before you wrap up your thoughts, is there any aspect of the game that you haven't gotten to mention today, whether it be like a story beat or like a gameplay choice? Just wanted to make sure you got a chance to cover what you wanted to cover.
Totally. I think like another thing that I like love about the game is like not everything is spelled out for you, and it leaves like so much like one of my favorite pieces of lore from the second game is that there's like, this isn't our spoiler, but there's this character you get called the Handmaiden. I think her name's Brianna, but kind of an Ashley.
I was gonna say,
but you can like, and all the characters in the game, you can actually, they turn out to all be like force sensitive, and you can like teach them how to be Jedi. But she talks about her mom that she's like never got to meet or was separated from, named Aaron Kai or Kay, and who was like this Jedi master. But then like as you delve more and more into Brianna, the lore about Brianna's mom, what happened to her, there's all these parallels between her mom and Kreia, who is like your master, and it's sort of like semi-implied that Kreia is her mom.
Wow.
But it's like vague enough that it's like it's interesting to like put the pieces together, where it's like they have a lot of similar history, where it's like Aaron Kay and Kreia both were allegedly like Revan's master, like their last master before he like disappeared. So stuff like that, where it's like, oh, sounds like they're the same person. But that sort of stuff I'm like, I love.
That's even just bringing that, first of all, that sounds really fascinating and fun to like read between the lines yourself almost. That just makes me consider like how lore or things are presented in games, and where I think sometimes there can be a benefit to not spelling it out and underlining it so specifically, and other times it is helpful. But I don't know, I think maybe this is just an example of how either can be true. Like that really works for that story point. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's game is amazing.
Yeah. Well, Nick, before we move on to the post-show segments that I have prepared for you based on this game, will you do me a favor and sort of wrap up the place that Knights of the Old Republic 2 holds for you?
Yeah. Oh my God. The penthouse of my heart. It's sort of like Taylor Swift said in Bejeweled. Incredible game. Everyone should play it. Everyone should try to play it also with their story content mod, which I think is more maybe they have that for consoles now, but like I know it's definitely available for the PC. But I think it got like so written, not necessarily by the KOTOR community, which I think knows the truth, but I think got written off by a lot of people because of like the loose ends that weren't tied up in the rushed release. But like, because there was a full, that's another thing, forgot to mention, is like there was fully a planet that got cut from the game, where it was like they're in the midst of developing this like robot planet.
Yes.
And that I think I don't think that is a part of the restored content mod.
I don't think it is either, because as per my research.
Yeah, and I think there are some mods that do re-implement it, because there is some amount of those files like left in the game somewhere.
Sure. Interesting.
But that was like they just didn't at all have the time to even get close to completing it. And it's just crazy that, I mean, yeah, like they're one of the Jedi Masters they're looking for. They just kind of like, she's supposed to be found on the robot planet, and they just like threw her corpse on a Korriban. And yeah, I think like just even like without the restored content mod, I think it's like an incredible game if you just meet it on its terms and just know going in.
I love it. Well, Nick, we got a few minutes left here still, but thank you so much for bringing on this game. This was so much fun to hear from you about, the place that it holds in your life. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. Yeah. Well, to close out today, I'll lead us into our post-show segments, the first of which is the Fact Me by Your Game segment, and that's just a segment where I share a fun fact about the game with my listener, which we've been sort of talking about this whole time, and it has to do with the unfinished, the rushed game and the restored content. If you want to jump in at any point, feel free. I think we've even been sharing little factoids from this throughout, so this is hopefully going to tie everything up. But I'll just go ahead and dive into it really quick. KOTOR II had a famously rushed development cycle, as the game was made in 14 to 16 months. In fact, development started for it before KOTOR I even released. I don't know how much overlap there was, but there was at least a little bit. And again, Obsidian doing the game, not BioWare, who did the first one. So it was originally slated for release in 2005, but I don't remember what the reasoning was, but they moved it up to December 2004. So I'm sure it was to rush the game out by the publisher and make money quicker.
Yeah, holiday release, yeah.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Of course, holiday release. This caused the game to be released in an unfinished state, with a good deal of content being cut. Among the cut content was exactly what you just mentioned, the droid planet called M478, which I don't believe is a part of the fan-made restored content. There were several official patches to the game, but the fan-made mod called the Sith Lords Restored Content Modification is the restored mod of the game that a lot of people will sort of just know. So if anyone's referring to like a lot of the restored content, that's usually the one that they're referring to. A little bit about that is that a year-spanning project that aims to improve the gameplay experience of KOTOR 2 as intended by its developer, TSLRCM, the Sith Lords Restored Content Modification, abbreviated, is developed by a group of fans who piece together disparate narrative elements through data extracted from the game's fragmented code, which contained innumerable unused assets and voiceover recordings, and incorporated these alterations into the final product. The first public release was in September 2009. And so this what I'm pulling from is a little dated from Wikipedia, but as of 2015, the mod is endorsed and supported by the Aspire Media Incorporated, which is the developer and publisher responsible for the continued support of KOTOR 2. So they even got, I don't know, at least like a sort of gesture of support from Aspire. And here's sort of where some of this comes to a conclusion. In May 2022, a Nintendo Switch port of the game was announced, and the announcement teased that the mod would be available as a free DLC. The port was released in 2022 in June, but the content, TSLRCM, that mod, was canceled. So it never ended up coming to fruition. And I think, at least for consoles and the Switch, I remember hearing about this a good deal when this was going down, because one of my really good friends, host of the Nintendo Cartridge Society, Patrick Ellers, one of his friends is like a contributor to this, to the fan mod. And so I think he had like his ear to the ground, and I remember it being disappointing for some people when this was announced it's not coming to Switch. I'm wondering, maybe you can speak to this, Nick, if the reason that it is on PC is just that modding is a lot easier on PC, and it's a lot easier to find ways to get files and sort of like mod them on a computer versus like getting official DLC on a console. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's like, I don't know if I have the answer, but I imagine it's because it is like modding is just like so much more part of like, the like PC gaming culture and like communities, and it's like just so much more robust. And I don't even know if like, I wonder if like for consoles also, like what is the process to getting like mods onto consoles, like, and like what are the channels you have to go through to make those like available? Because it seems like with like, PC, it's kind of like you can just like put that up and then and then like modify your files, and like with a console it's like how would you even do that? It's not part of the store or something.
I bet there's way more hoops you'd have to jump through, and ways you'd have to like crack open, digital, I guess not literally, but crack open your console to find a way to program that in there. So anyway, as far as the this content mod thing goes, did you have anything that you wanted to share about it after I kind of rambled for a bit?
Oh yeah, I think like if you're able to play first for a content mod, like that's the way to go. Yeah. Just to like get the most like complete, like robust version of the game, probably closer to like what the creators intended. Awesome.
Very cool. Well, that was probably the longest fact I've ever shared on the show, and especially it is a reason I only chose one because I wanted to spend time on it. But that's the Fact Me By Your Game section. I'll lead us into the final one today. And Nick, that is the game recommendations. Now, as you may or may not know, this is my one forced tie-in to the movie Call Me By Your Name, where I'm going to treat KOTOR 2 like your summer passionate fling that you get to have, and like kind of like in the movie. And unfortunately, that's not going to work out for you. So with your heart broken, I am here to potentially get you back out there on the dating scene and introduce you to 3 games that may be a good fit for you romantically. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. So I've got 3 prepared for you today that all have something in common with KOTOR 2. Now, the first one is, if what you loved about this game is that you were like Obsidian took a stab at a beloved IP, the second, they took a game franchise and made their own, and you're like, I want to see what they can do with something else, then I'll recommend Fallout New Vegas, which, it was always, for a time, Fallout was not even Bethesda, but then it was Bethesda making a couple, and then Obsidian made this game. Have you played New Vegas before?
I have not, but it's one of my brother's favorite games.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I've only played like one. I played Fallout 3, like maybe 20 hours of it. I thought it was great, but this is the one that I hear about most as like the pinnacle of the series, I want to say.
No, same. And like it's very like Obsidian also seems like they were just like really in their heyday, and just have like a great like writing team, because like that's the thing I hear the most about is just like the story and the writing is like really, really great in New Vegas.
Yes. So Fallout New Vegas is your first recommendation. Your second one is if what you took away from this game was you love Star Wars, but this game didn't have enough droid stuff for you. You want more droids. I'll recommend to you the children's game Star Wars Droid Works. Have you ever heard of this game?
No, I haven't.
So oftentimes the games I recommend, I've never played. This game I did have on the PC as a kid. And what I remember about it is a lot of like building your own custom droids and having them do like very simple platforming sections in a game. But I remember loving it as a kid, so you might like it.
Okay, yeah. Hey, I'm open.
It's probably playable in a browser somewhere at this point. That's your second rec. And the final recommendation is if what you took away from this game was that you actually loved that it was unfinished. You are opened to unfinished products because who knows what they can be in the future. I'll recommend another unfinished game that has a beloved fan community, and that's No Man's Sky. Have you ever heard of No Man's Sky?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Have you played it before?
I've never played, but I heard so much about it when it came out.
Yes. So, you know, if that's what you're into, sort of a tumultuous launch and all that jazz, then that's your other recommendation.
Yeah, I love the No Man's Sky. I love cyberpunk.
There we go.
Yeah.
So for you, I'll wrap up today by just recalling your 3 recs. We've got Fallout New Vegas, Star Wars Droid Works, and No Man's Sky. Nick, that'll do it for the end of the recs, and that'll actually bring us to the end of the show. So before we plug whatever we want to and get out of here, I just want to say thanks again for coming on the show and guesting with me today. This is so much fun to get to know you better and hear about, you know, something you care a lot about.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Had a great time.
You betcha. Well, is there anything you want to plug today, whether it's social media or a show or anything you got going on?
Totally. I'm on Herald Night at UCB LA every other Monday, as is Connor. And my next show I think is the 24th.
Hey, same here. I wonder if we're paired together.
Oh, mine's at 7. What's yours at?
Ooh, I'll look literally right now because you know I'm a good boy. I got my calendar ready to go. We're the 8:30, but I'll have to pop in and watch you, I guess.
Totally. And I'm on TikTok at nick.tiff, and then Instagram it's Nick Tiffs.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I'll put links to the show notes to your next This Is She show and those 2 social media accounts. And then I'll just go ahead and close this out with some plugs of my own. The cover art for Call Me By Your Game is done by Glenn J. If you want to support him and check out the other great art that he makes all the time, you can visit him on Instagram. Again, there's links in the show notes for all of these things. This show is produced, edited, and the original music at the top is done by Jeremy Schmidt. You can find him and give him a tip of the hat as a thank you for the work he does on this podcast by looking up his podcast, Video Games, a Comedy Show. It's another great show that, like Reactivators and this show, we're on the same network, so check it out. You can find me all over social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. The show is also all over, including TikTok, so follow our TikTok account if you don't and you're out there, but we're on Instagram, Twitter, you know, all that stuff, where I'll be plugging this show when it comes out. You can also find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/consiscool69, where I've been playing through my first playthrough of BioShock Infinite for a podcast that we have coming up from this network. And then lastly is that if you like me and the conversations I have with people about video games and you want more of that stuff, and on top of that, you want to support us, check out our Patreon. We're over at patreon.com/supernpcradio, where we have a bunch of bonus video game podcasts that come out literally every week. Our main ticket is the games club that we have going on. When this episode comes out, we will be finished with the BioShock Games Club, where every week for 11 weeks we went through that game chapter by chapter and discussed it as a group of our recent playthrough. We have a BioShock Infinite bonus episode that we're doing, which is more of an overview. And then coming up, first time I'm announcing it on this show, the next Games Club will be all about Hollow Knight. The patrons voted. They chose Hollow Knight from our indie darlings. You actually mentioned Undertale earlier, Nick. That was a nominee of ours, but it did not come out on top.
Oh, God. Someday.
Yeah. But anyway, again, all that bonus stuff is at patreon.com/supernpcradio. Check us out there. You might find something that suits your fancy. But that'll do it for this episode of Call Me By Your Game. We will see you on the next one.